Have you ever noticed you can't actually relax anymore, even on vacation? Or that you're tired, wired, snapping at people you love, and running on caffeine and willpower? Today, I'm going to show you what's really happening inside your body when stress becomes the default setting and exactly what helps. So, what chronic stress really is? I want to start by getting really clear on what we're actually talking about. Stress itself is not the enemy. Stress is just your body's response to a demand, whether it's physical, emotional, or mental. It's just information. It's your nervous system saying, hey, pay attention. Something requires energy right now. Chronic stress, though, is different. It's not one alarm going off. It's the alarm getting stuck in the on position for days, weeks, months, sometimes years, till it stops feeling like an alarm at all. It just feels like you, like your personality, like I'm just a high strung person, or I've always been a bad sleeper, or I just have a short fuse. That's the part that I want you to sit with for a second. A lot of what people think is just who they are is actually their nervous system stuck in a pattern it never got permission to come down from. For me personally, when I was building my business, I was working long, long hours, and I got to a point where I wasn't stopping to reflect very much about what my life was like or how hard I was working, and I wasn't sleeping very much either. And so when I ultimately started getting snappy with people and I didn't have the patience that I had and I wasn't as present in moments that I should have been, I sort of chalked it up as, maybe I'm just not that good a person, right? I wasn't looking at it as a stress pattern. Once I was able to shift and I started to get my life back in alignment and I started sleeping more and feeling better, my entire outlook changed. And I realized I was just stuck in this pattern. And so I challenge you to take a look at that as well. You know, I've also had that feeling of wired but tired. I don't know if you've ever been there where you, on the one hand, are exhausted and should be. You realize you haven't gotten enough sleep or, you haven't taken a break for very long, while at the same time, you can't seem to idle down. You're still motivated or you're still focused on something and your mind won't stop moving. So, if you know about that, if you felt that before, that's exactly what this episode's all about. So, is there a trait that you have that maybe you call just how I am that might actually be chronic stress in disguise? Because here's the thing, stress itself, again, is not necessarily bad. It's only when it's chronic that it becomes an issue. So, stress in the short term can be useful. It sharpens our focus. It gives you a burst of energy. It's the reason that you could pull off a deadline, have a hard conversation, or react quickly when something unexpected happens. That stress response was built for short bursts, a clear start, a clear end, and then recovery. The threat shows up, the body responds, the threat passes, the body comes back down. That cycle, when it completes, it's actually healthy. It's how the system was designed to work in the first place. The problem isn't that your body has a stress response. The problem is when coming back down part stops happening. When the system stays activated long after the actual demand is gone, that's when stress stops being a tool and starts being a baseline. So, if you think about good short term stress, when you have an exam to study for and you only have a couple of days, you're able to focus in a way that you can't when it's sort of sprawling and you know that it's down the road somewhere. If you're going to hit a workout, you want that maximum intensity for a short period of time, and stress will help you do that. Those deadlines, public speaking, if you get up on stage or have to deliver a speech, that can create a lot of stress. But if you channel it into the right thing, it can become energy that makes you focused. It makes you in tune with the audience and it makes you more dynamic on stage. And the recovery happens afterward, right? You come off the stage, you feel great, everybody claps. You get done with the workout, you drink your protein shake or whatever, and you feel great because you got that good pump and you just feel really, really good about yourself. But if we contrast that with a season of life where the recovery never came and things just kept piling on, for me, I was working 16 hours a day sometimes, and I never had any downtime. And even when I took breaks, my mind was always constantly working on that. And so I did get to a point where initially it was a struggle to do that, But eventually I got to a place where it felt so natural. I didn't even realize that I was stressed or fatigued anymore because that was my baseline. The challenge or the problem with that is long term, that's super unhealthy. If it wasn't, it wouldn't matter so much. But ultimately, in the long term, it does really bad things to your body. So if we think about it as the analogy of a smoke alarm that's supposed to go off, it's supposed to alert you and then reset, or one that just keeps going on and beeping in the background until you stop hearing it, because eventually you'll start to tune things out. So let's talk about what chronic stress does biologically. What's actually happening inside your body when stress becomes chronic? In plain terms, your nervous system has two main modes. One is often called the flight or fight. Probably heard that before. That's your sympathetic nervous system. It's the gas pedal. The other is sometimes called rest and digest, your parasympathetic nervous system, or the brake. In a healthy pattern, you move between these. Gas pedal when you need to act, brake when the demand passes, so your body can repair, digest, sleep, and reset. With chronic stress, the gas pedal stays partially pressed all the time. Your body keeps producing stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline being the big ones, at levels that were only ever meant to be temporary. So cortisol isn't a villain. It plays a real role in regulating energy, blood sugar, and inflammation. But when it stays elevated or when its normal daily rhythm gets thrown off, your body starts treating emergency mode as the new normal. And a body that thinks it's always under threat starts making different decisions about energy, about digestion, about sleep, about immune function than a body that feels safe. So if we think about a car idling in the driveway with the engine revving versus a car that's actually turned off and resting, or maybe a phone stuck at 100% brightness with 10 apps running in the background, draining the battery even when it's not in use. The whole point here is that if we've ever felt that way, if you've ever had that feeling as though you can't slow down, or you haven't stopped long enough to look up and evaluate whether you've been able to slow down, that's something that it's important to be able to focus on and have awareness around so you have the opportunity to make a change. Now, this isn't about blaming yourself. This isn't about doing stress wrong. If you find that you're in that situation, I was too. It happens to a lot of us. And it's a survival system for doing exactly what it's designed to do. We're just doing it for too long. So the important thing is to identify and then find a way to overcome it. So, how chronic stress shows up in your daily life. This is where it gets real because chronic stress doesn't stay in the background. It shows up in almost every part of daily life. The funny thing is, I didn't realize that I was short with people or snippy or not present until it was brought to my awareness when somebody asked me, "Why are you okay? Why are you so cranky?" At a family function when there's no reason for me to be that way. It was a celebratory birthday party, and here I am being cranky and disinterested. And it had nothing to do with my love for my family. It had everything to do with the fact that my tank was drained. So sleep is often one of the first places it shows up. You might be exhausted, but your mind won't shut off at night. You lay down and you think to yourself, "Oh, I'm going to get good sleep tonight." And then your mind keeps spinning. And then the stress kicks in because you're not able to sleep and you know you should be sleeping. That's your nervous system still running the program that it's been running all day. Then there's the energy and cravings. When your body thinks it's under constant low grade threat, it starts reaching for quick fuel, sugar, caffeine, anything that gives a fast hit of energy or comfort. That afternoon crash, the 3 p.m. wall, the late night snacking, a lot of that traces back to a body trying to manage its energy in survival mode rather than a calm, regulated state. Mood and emotional reactivity change too. When your baseline stress is high, your tolerance for frustration shrinks. Small things feel bigger. You might notice you're snapping at people, like I said, that you love over things that on a calmer day, they wouldn't even register for you. Then there's decision fatigue, that feeling where even small choices like what to eat for dinner or what to wear, they feel exhausting. You're already overwhelmed. That's not weakness. That's a brain that's been making threat assessments all day and has less left over for everything else. And relationships often take the quiet hit. Presence, actually being there with someone, not half checked out and scanning for the next problem, gets harder when your system is on high alert. And people can feel it even if no one says anything. Thankfully for me, somebody did. I also want to gently mention, and I want to be careful here because I'm not a doctor, this isn't medical advice, but there's a well documented connection between prolonged stress and the body's inflammatory and immune responses. So I'm not going to make big claims about what that means for any specific condition, but it's one more reason this isn't just in your head. This is full body. So if we think about sleep, if we think about cravings, if we think about our mood, if we think about our relationships, I know for me, I can identify things in all four of those categories where I've had personal situations where it's been affected. I usually try to eat pretty healthy, but when I'm in that state and I don't have the time, I also don't have the mental reserves to say I'm going to hold out or I'm going to take more time to make something better. When I'm feeling stressed, my mood tends to be a little bit more dour. I'm just not in a great mood all the time. Sleep is more labored and difficult. I stay awake at night. It's harder to get up in the morning, and relationships all take a hit. Less actual time with people and less present time. And people aren't dumb. They can feel it when you're not really there. And so I think that it's really important that if you ever notice a day where several of those are stacking on top of each other at once, or if you've even noticed any of those, that you become aware and conscious of it so you notice it next time, and that will be your signal and your alert. Now, I just want to emphasize too that none of this means that something's wrong with you. It just means that your system is doing what stress systems do. So, why do so many people normalize this survival mode? Well, part of the problem is today's day and age, we're pushed to constantly produce. And here's the part that doesn't get talked about enough. A lot of us have been in this state for so long that it doesn't even register as stress anymore. It just feels like life. Oh, life is hard. Life is busy. Life is this. It's like being an adult, right? This is just what it takes to be successful and to live a good life, right? Or to live a life at all. There's a cultural story that says being busy, being tired, being stretched thin, it's a badge of honor. That if you're not running on empty, you're not doing enough. And so people learn to push through, to white knuckle it, to treat exhaustion as proof of their effort. But there's a real difference between a life that's full of meaningful things, things you care about, and a life that's just full of stress that your body never gets to recover from. Those can look identical from the outside. They feel completely different from the inside. So I know in terms of being able to normalize that survival mode, you know, we're all in a position where we have a deadline at work or we have something pressing we're trying to do. Or in my case, because I was starting a business, the expectation is that the buy in is tons of extra work and it's lots of sacrifice and all these other things. And that's fine, but it has to be short term because if it gets to a point where it starts to extend beyond that, that's when it becomes detrimental to all the other aspects of your life. You know, I used to feel proud of the fact that I would juggle a family at home. I had a house and mortgage and car payments. I was working a full time job. I was going to graduate school at night and on weekends. And on top of that, I was starting a business. And I thought, wow, that's really great. The reality of it is, I was so depleted. And it now makes me cringe when I see people online with their, warrior mentality. I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. and I don't need to sleep. And I think it's such a bad idea because again, if you do it once in a while, that's okay. But doing that perpetually, habitually will break your body down. And so for me, I will tell you that I noticed a big shift when I started to read about studies about sleep and the effect that it has. And I had some personal experiences with my mom relative to what I attributed to her lack of sleep chronically. I decided to change my habits. And even though I was still too busy, I committed to getting 7 hours of sleep a night. And once I started to do that, it took a little bit of time. The first couple of days, it felt weird. I didn't feel any better. I still woke up feeling groggy. So give yourself grace. But after a few days of doing this, and I started to shift. I started to notice things I didn't notice before. My mood had improved. I felt better. I woke up with more energy. I had a lot less anxiety. Things that would affect me were much more easily brushed off. And all of those things I think are so important when you know that being busy and being okay are not the same thing. So think about this. Is there an area in your life right now where you mistake an exhaustion for productivity? And now I want to talk about the life changes that can actually help. So, what actually helps? We've identified the issue, but a lot of us are busy. We have a lot of things going on. So, I want to be honest with you. There is no single hack. There's not a supplement. There's not a miracle morning routine that resets a nervous system overnight. It took me, I estimate days, but maybe it was weeks. I don't even remember. It took a little bit for me to get back to equilibrium. And so, if anyone promises you overnight success with this, be skeptical. What actually works is actually closer to this: small, consistent signals to your body that it's safe to come down out of alert mode. Not a dramatic life overhaul, repeated ordinary moments that tell your nervous system, we're okay now, you can stand down. When I started to sleep more, it's the only habit I changed initially. I didn't try to reinvent my entire life. I just said, no matter how much I still have on my list, I'm going to bed so I can get 7 hours of sleep. And I will be more productive during the hours I'm awake so that I can get that sleep. That's the only change I made initially, and it made a huge difference. Now, that might look like protecting your sleep window even imperfectly, and that's what it was for me. It might be regular movement, not punishing workouts, but consistent movement that helps your body process stress hormones the way it's designed to. It might be moments of genuine stillness, not scrolling, not multitasking, just a few minutes of quiet. It might be time outdoors or time with people who feel safe, or simply building in transitions, a few minutes between work and home, between one task and the next, instead of going full speed all day and then crashing. The honest truth is that recovery isn't a luxury that you earn after everything else is handled. That list will always keep filling. It's part of how the whole system works. A body and mind that get real recovery make better decisions. They have more patience, more energy, and more capacity for the things and the people that matter the most to us. And this is really the heart of what we mean by living an optimized life. It's not about adding more. It's about designing a life where you're not constantly fighting your own biology just to get through the day. So I know for me, sleep was the start. The other big change that I made, and it actually, I have to credit my son for this, because when he got hurt in soccer and pulled a hamstring, the doctors told me he needed more pure, high quality protein. So I started grilling lots of food after that. And I found specifically very simple recipes that were quick to make. I don't have a lot of time to cook. Started grilling fish, grilling chicken. And I have to tell you that after switching my own diet to that, not only did it help him recover, but I actually felt better physically also. I still snack. I'm not perfect. I don't count my calories, but I try to be sensible. And I try to cook at least a few good solid things every, nights out of the week. So that way we're eating high quality food. That was another one that made a big difference for me. And spending time outside. So any of those things, whatever it is for you, is the thing you want to tap into, and start small, start simple, and then grow it from there. They could take time. And if it doesn't take, if if it's a challenge at first, stick with it. Don't abandon it just because it doesn't work or it isn't easy right away. Because if you're just managing stress and coping in the moment versus designing a life that creates less unnecessary stress, that's a structural change. That's where we want to be. And so once we start to do that, those small and consistent shifts beat big and unsustainable, because if you try for that home run, you may hit it once, but it's going to be hard to sustain that. So that's the big thing that we want to focus on with doing this. So let's talk about how the body vitality supports stress recovery. When your body has what it needs, real rest, movement that supports rather than depletes you, nutrition that stabilizes energy instead of spiking and crashing it, your nervous system has a much easier time coming back down to baseline. Body vitality is really about building that foundation so your body becomes a place that supports calm instead of constantly fighting for it. And then there's the other half of this, the inner side. Because even with great sleep and good habits, if your inner world is running on autopilot reactivity, stress will keep finding its way back in. I know for me, one of the things that works really well is listening to either some really calming classical music or some affirmations or meditations, anything like that to just get centered to start the day. Listen to some positive, uplifting stories or read some positive, uplifting news. Those kinds of things set the tone for the day and start by reducing the stress to begin with, and then it's easier to maintain that baseline. So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few questions. And of course, you don't have to answer them all. Just let them sit with you. First, where in your life have you mistaken busy for okay? Second, when was the last time that your body actually felt like it fully came down, not just stopped working, but actually relaxed? And third, if your nervous system could ask for one small thing this week, not a huge change, just one small thing, what do you think it would ask for? So here's what I'd love for you to try this week. Just one thing. Pick a single moment in your day. It could be morning, midday, or evening, and protect 5 minutes where you do absolutely nothing productive. No phone, no multitasking, no optimizing it. Just 5 minutes of actual stillness. It might feel strange at first, almost uncomfortable. That's totally normal. That discomfort is often a sign of just how unfamiliar down has become. But that's the whole point. You're giving your nervous system a small repeated signal that it's safe to stand down. And over time, those small signals add up to more than people expect.